It's April 27th, 2012, and I'm here at Hercules Glades Wilderness area, and for the next 24 hours, I'm going to be seeing how many species of animals I can find and identify.
The glades here at Hercules Glades are actually thin-soiled rocky areas where trees have difficulty growing. As a result, the plant and animal communities here start taking on an almost desert-like appearance.
Under this rock we have a really interesting invertebrate species that I don't think very many people actually know occurs in Missouri. Here, let's have a look at this guy.
Scorpions are extremely common on glades like this, but they're not often seen because they're nocturnal and like to hide under cover objects like rocks or leaf litter by day. Though this species can deliver a painful sting, it's not particularly dangerous to humans. But scorpions aren't the only venomous critter dwelling under the rocks on these glades.
This is a black widow, and this is a big female. See how large her abdomen is there? She's probably got a lot of eggs in there. And we know it's a southern black widow because if you can see the bottom of her abdomen, she has that classic red hourglass shape. And the southern black widows have a connected hourglass, whereas the northerns, which surprisingly also occur here, have a disconnected hourglass.
Black widows are much less dangerous than most people think, and they're docile and retreating animals that don't ever attack people. However, there is an arachnid here that has it out for you, and it's ticks. If hiking at Hercules Glades, be aware that ticks are abundant and they can transmit some nasty diseases. Though the glades are probably the most unique habitat features here, they aren't necessarily the most prevalent. In fact, much of this property is made up of mixed deciduous forests, but this great diversity of habitats lends itself to some excellent birding. Sometimes it feels like bird watching should really be called bird listening, because the best way to figure out which birds are in your area is to listen to them. Most will be heard and never seen, and most of the birds on this list were heard but not seen. For that reason, even though birds made up almost a third of my final species count, we're not going to focus too much on the bird diversity of Hercules Glades, but I will feature a few throughout the trip. Just as beautiful and much easier to film, butterflies are abundant here. This particular species blends in perfectly with the leaf litter on the forest floor. But butterflies aren't the only colorful insects here. I was lucky enough to happen onto a beautiful predatory beetle scurrying along the trail. Long Creek cuts through the middle of Hercules Glades. Though there wasn't much water in the creek when I was down there, there was still quite a bit of life clustered around the small pools that I did find.
So the majority of Long Creek appears to be pretty dry. We've got this nice pool here. There's a lot of life in here. If you think about the tide pool effect, we've got these little tide pools that dry, and you trap a lot of things in here. And so we've got a lot of invertebrates, and even a few little vertebrates in here.
Small pools like this can be critical nurseries for both insects and amphibians, and this pool was absolutely full of toad eggs and tadpoles. The abundant moisture down here also draws in plenty of butterflies. In fact, my second favorite place to look for butterflies, after flowers, is in drying creek beds. But there are also larger animals patrolling these drying creek beds.
Look at this. I thought he was going to move a little faster than that. Right here, oops. See, these guys can be kind of bitey, so let's see if I can calmly secure him. There we go. This is a racer, and this is actually, you see that yellow belly? This is the yellow-bellied subspecies. This is the yellow belly racer. You can see he's a very long, slender snake, nice smooth scales there, and check out his face. You can see how he's got very large eyes, very good eyesight. This is also a very fast snake. He was out here warming up on this exposed rock. There seem to be a lot of snakes coming out to sun in this creek today. And he's trying to heat up. These are sort of diurnally very active predators, and unlike a lot of other snakes that are kind of built like this that constrict their prey, these snakes actually just chase it down and bite it and try to somehow get it down their throat. So it's not quite as tactical as those snakes that are trying to constrict, but it works pretty well for this snake. They are very fast, they're very alert, they have good eyesight, so they're pretty good at it. And they're fairly common out in these kind of drier, more open conditions like this, because they do need to get the sun to be able to heat up and stay warm to fuel that highly active lifestyle. And this is also a snake. A lot of snakes come out and they're slightly active at night. This is a snake you will never see active at night. This is definitely a strictly diurnal snake. So this is the racer. Take one more look and we'll go ahead and let him go.
I managed to spot a few other racers while I was walking through this stream bed, all out basking in the sun. I decided to leave these alone and simply watch them from afar. This was apparently a pretty snaky spot, because just a few minutes later I stumbled upon this beautiful northern water snake. Water snakes are only semi-aquatic, and they're just as at home on land as they are in the water. This big female may have been out looking for a drying pool and some trapped minnows, or she may have been hunting for frogs amongst the rocks.
So here we're coming out onto this glade. We're actually still in a place where the cedars are still pretty thick, but soon we'll come out into the big open glade, get a good look at Pilot Knob.
Glades are somewhat naturally treeless because of their thin, poor soils. However, they're also fire-maintained ecosystems just like grasslands, and there's some question as to whether in the absence of human interference, these fire-maintained glades can remain open indefinitely. Some glade specialists, like the collared lizard, require very open, very sunny conditions, and in the absence of direct management, like prescribed fire, these glades can revert to more shaded habitats that aren't appropriate for this species. In fact, on this trip I didn't see a single collared lizard, despite the fact that they're supposed to be here. And though I did find a collared lizard on an adjacent property, the remains of this deceased individual weren't exactly a reassuring sign that this population was thriving. Now, I don't know that the absence of collared lizards here is any indication that a hands-off approach or a lack of management may be reverting some of the critical parts of these glades to forest, but it's something to consider. Other lizards, like this fence lizard, are a little bit less picky about their habitat choices, and I saw them abundantly both on the glades and throughout the forests of this property. Watching their antics and their quick movements was one of the most entertaining parts of my hike here. Considerably less easy to spot and easy to get a good look at were the six-lined race runners that scurried through the underbrush, both on the glade in the thick grasses and through the leaf litter at the edge of the glades in the forest. As I said earlier, I do prefer to look for butterflies around wildflowers than in dry stream beds, and these Indian paintbrush wildflowers really made for a great place to spot a variety of butterflies, including these gorgeous swallowtails. But this glade hides some perhaps less traditionally beautiful animals that I was here to see.
So under this rock right here, I found a very unique invertebrate species. We talked about earlier how a lot of people wouldn't expect scorpions to be here. And there's a number of desert invertebrates that live here. And this is one that people don't even know about for the most part. They get very, very big. This one's not particularly large, but this actually has the potential to give you an extremely painful sting. And these are actually pretty hard to come by around here. You don't see them too often, but they are around. So I've got my camera out. I'm going to attempt to film it and photograph it at the same time. And they move like greased lightning. So I'm going to hopefully get it in this. We'll see how this works. Test my camera settings out here real quick. This is what I was trying to catch under that rock. See it? This is the giant desert centipede. And as you're looking at this, you might think, well, it's a pretty big centipede, but giant's a little bit of an overstatement. And that's because this is a baby. And even as a baby, you can see it's quite a bit larger than most centipedes. The adults of this species can actually reach 6 to 8 inches long, which is huge. I mean, can you imagine a centipede that could stretch out over most of your arm like that? And like you might expect, they can give you quite a painful bite. Like I mentioned earlier, their front legs are modified into sort of pincers, and when they pinch you with those, they inject venom. Very effective predators. As they get bigger, sometimes they're even found just crawling around out in the open during daylight because they don't have nearly as many predators as the smaller centipedes. And they're actually hunting things like lizards, which are out and active during the daytime.
I let the centipede back out of the bottle and released it shortly after filming that segment and enjoyed watching it quickly disappear under the safety of its rock.
All right, have a look at this. We've got a much larger giant desert centipede here.
Looking at this much larger adult centipede, it's probably a little bit less surprising that this animal can kill and hunt lizards. You can also see those beautiful bright colors that serve as a warning against would-be predators that this animal packs a punch. It's a truly humbling and honestly somewhat unsettling feeling to watch the sun set as you're all alone miles from any other person, road, or human structure, knowing you'll have to spend the night there by yourself. But the nighttime chorus of whippoorwills and chuckwills' widows and coyote packs as they howled and yipped and ran pretty close to my tent was actually a really incredible thing. It made me feel like a very small part of a very wild place. Waking up to this kind of sunrise and dawn chorus of birds in this remote and wild of a place is also a truly unforgettable and amazing experience. It's perhaps the noises that are most noticeably different in such a remote place. The bird sound, the insect sound, they're so abundant, and they seem to stretch out forever in every direction. But morning can also be a good time to find hidden creatures under rocks before they've come out and started their daily activities. Though I saw many race runners during my time here, this was the only one I really managed to get close to, much less get my hands on. Small terrestrial snakes like this Earthsnake are pretty common here, but they're rarely seen because they spend most of their life underground.
Alright, here we have a little speckled king snake. This is kind of a young one, but you can see this is a really beautiful snake and one that a lot of people come to glades like this to see, and unfortunately one that gets collected quite a bit. But obviously this guy's not going to get collected. Now they're named king snake for a reason, and that's because of their diet. This little snake right here eats almost entirely other snakes. Now it will eat others, it will eat small mammals and that sort of thing, but it is a big snake eater, and that's why they're named king snake. And a lot of the snakes in this genus will readily eat snakes. And you can see it's kind of built sort of stocky and smooth scaled, and it's got kind of a long body there. And this is a constrictor. You see a lot of snakes with this similar body type right here, this very basic plan, are constrictors. And these guys do constrict. And the interesting thing about these snakes is not only do they prey on other snakes, but they will prey on venomous snakes, copperheads, timber rattlesnakes, all that kind of stuff. And they have a slight immunity to the venom, so they can actually take a bite from one of those things and keep going. It's a very fascinating little snake, and I'm going to put him back under his rock. Now, we've seen scorpions and we've seen the giant desert centipede out here, but there's one more interesting invertebrate that you might not associate with Missouri that's actually pretty common out on these glades. And I actually just saw one go under this rock. So let's see if we can find him. I don't know if I can get this rock up or not. I'm going to give it a shot. Oh yeah, there it is. We've got a little tarantula.
Tarantulas are impressive big spiders, but the large females spend most of their time underground in their burrows, emerging only at night to forage. While their fangs may seem imposing, they're very reluctant to bite people. Instead, if a large, potentially dangerous animal threatens them, they turn to a very different defensive strategy.
She's massive. Oh, see, look at that. She's pretty heated up, too. Oh!
Did you catch that? Let's slow it down and look at it again.
You see that? She just flicked utriculating hairs at me.
Those utriculating hairs on their abdomen can be flicked off like that into the face or the mouth of a predator, causing enough pain, itching, and irritation to make them leave. Hercules Glades Wilderness area is a remarkably beautiful and remote place. In fact, it actually contains Missouri's most remote spot, as measured in a direct line from the nearest road. Properties like this may also serve to spark some useful philosophical discussions on the role humans should have in managing wild places in this very human-altered world we now live in. But regardless of what your thoughts are on that, I guarantee you won't be disappointed if you ever find the time to make it down to Southwest Missouri and visit Hercules Glades Wilderness area.